Mark had always been just a soldier. He wasn't important. He wasn't rich. He didn't have any special powers. But he was good at what he did. And that's why he was here, on the strange planet of Zoltrax. When the call came, Mark had no idea what to expect. A letter had arrived on his ship, sealed with a mark he didn't recognize. It was from the Queen of Zoltrax, Seraphina, one of the most powerful alien rulers in the galaxy. The letter said only one thing: "You are invited to the royal palace. Come alone. Your presence is needed." He didn't know why. He wasn't even sure if he wanted to know. But when the message was clear, there was no turning back. He followed orders and landed on the planet. Zoltrax was unlike anything Mark had ever seen. The sky was a deep purple, filled with swirling clouds of light. The ground was smooth and metallic, shining in the glow of 3 moons overhead. Huge, towering spires stretched up into the sky, their tips lost in the fog. This was not the kind of place where you'd expect to find regular people. The city was alive with strange creatures, all moving quickly with purpose. But none of them paid him much attention. Mark stepped off his ship and felt the strange air fill his lungs. It was thick, unlike Earth's, and smelled faintly of sweet flowers mixed with metal. He swallowed hard, trying to calm his nerves. This was not his home. He didn't know if it was even safe, yet he had no choice but to follow the path leading into the heart of the city. As he walked, Mark's thoughts raced. Why had Queen Seraphina called him? What did she want with a simple soldier like him? There were thousands of soldiers across the galaxy. Why him? The path ended at the entrance to a huge palace. The walls were made of smooth, dark stone that seemed to shimmer in the light, as though the stone itself was alive. Mark felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something powerful about this place, something ancient. He was about to meet someone who could change the fate of the galaxy. 2 guards stood at the entrance. They were tall and imposing, dressed in silver armor with strange markings. They didn't say anything, but one of them motioned for Mark to enter. He hesitated for a moment before walking past them and into the grand hall. Inside, the palace was even more breathtaking. The walls were covered in bright, colorful tapestries, each telling stories of battles fought long ago. Mark looked around, trying to take it all in. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, and soft music played from somewhere in the distance. He followed the guards down a long hallway until they stopped in front of a large, ornate door. The door opened with a soft hiss, and Mark stepped inside. There, sitting on a throne made of black stone, was Queen Seraphina. She was beautiful, her alien features both sharp and elegant. Her skin was a shimmering shade of silver, and her eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed almost too bright to look at. Her long, dark hair cascaded down her back, framing her face in a way that made her look almost otherworldly. Mark froze for a moment. He had never seen anyone like her. She was not just a queen. She was a force of nature. The power she radiated was almost overwhelming. He could feel the weight of her gaze as she studied him, her eyes flicking over him with a mixture of curiosity and interest. "Mark," her voice was soft but firm, echoing in the room. "I'm glad you came." Mark stood still, unsure of what to say. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing slightly. "I don't understand. Why have you called me here?" Seraphina smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "You're not like the others, are you?" she said. "You don't come from wealth or power. You're just a soldier, a man from Earth, a place most of my people don't even know about. But you've caught my attention." Mark felt a knot form in his stomach. "I don't understand. What do you want with me?" The queen stood up from her throne, her movement graceful, almost fluid. "I need your help, Mark," she said, stepping closer to him. "My throne is under threat. My empire is falling apart. There is a rebellion growing against me, and unless I do something drastic, I will lose everything. I've called you here because I believe you can help me. One night, Mark, one night is all I ask. In that time, You will have the power to decide the future of my empire, and perhaps the future of the galaxy itself. Mark's heart raced. The weight of her words was heavy. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about power. This was about the future. But the question still remained. Why him? Serafina continued, her voice growing more serious. I am offering you something no one else could ever dream of. Mark. Power. Strength. Influence. You will have the ability to shape the world as you see fit. But there is a price, and only you can decide if it's worth paying. Mark stared at her, his mind spinning. What was this all about? What did she mean by one night? What was the price she spoke of? I don't know if I can help you, he said slowly, but I'll hear you out. Tell me what you need. Serafina's smile returned, and for the first time, it looked almost kind. You'll understand soon enough, Mark, I promise. The Queen's trouble. Mark sat in the grand hall, still trying to process everything. Queen Serafina had offered him power, strength, and a chance to change the fate of an entire empire. But he wasn't sure what that really meant. Serafina stood by the window, looking out at the star-filled sky. The soft light from the moons cast a faint glow on her silver skin. She seemed calm, but Mark could feel the tension in the air. Something was wrong, and he could sense it. This wasn't just about saving her empire. There was more to it. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now, almost as if she were talking to herself. You don't understand, Mark. This empire, it's my life. My people are everything to me. But there are forces out there that want to destroy it all. Mark stood up, feeling a pull of curiosity. What do you mean? What's really happening? Serafina turned to face him. Her eyes were no longer filled with the calm, distant confidence she had shown before. Instead, they were filled with something deeper. Fear. There's a rebellion growing against me, she said softly. A group of traitors has risen up, and they're gaining power. They want to overthrow me, take control of the throne. They think they can rule the empire better than I can. Mark could feel the weight of her words. He had heard of rebellions before, but this was different. This wasn't some small uprising on a backwater planet. This was a battle for control of an entire empire. Serafina wasn't just fighting to keep her crown. She was fighting for her very survival. But why is it so dangerous? You're the queen. You have an army, resources. You should be able to handle this, Mark asked, trying to understand. Serafina's gaze turned colder, harder. It's not that simple. The rebels have allies, powerful allies. They've been making moves in secret for months, slowly building up their forces, and they have something I don't. Mark raised an eyebrow. What's that? Trust, she said, her voice bitter. The people don't trust me anymore. There are whispers everywhere, whispers about my rule, my decisions, my family. Some believe I'm too harsh, too ruthless. Others believe I'm weak because I've shown mercy to those who don't deserve it. Mark couldn't help but feel a little sympathy for her. It must be difficult to rule an empire when the people you rule don't even believe in you. But he also knew that sometimes tough decisions had to be made. He didn't know much about ruling, but he knew that weakness could tear down even the strongest kingdoms. So, what do you need me for? Mark asked, unsure of where he fit into all of this. Serafina's eyes hardened again. I need someone who can help me regain control. Someone who isn't tied to the politics of this planet. Someone like you. Mark stepped back, confused. What do you mean? I'm just a soldier. I don't know anything about running an empire. Serafina stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. You don't have to. What I need is someone with fresh eyes. Someone who can think outside the rules. Someone who isn't clouded by the politics and power struggles. I need you to help me fight back. You may not know it yet, but you have something the rebels don't expect. You have power, Mark. I can feel it. Mark took a deep breath. The idea of getting involved in something so dangerous scared him, but he couldn't ignore the truth in her words. He wasn't just any soldier. He had trained for years, fought in battles, and survived things most people could never imagine. Maybe, just maybe, he could help. But what would the cost be? He opened his mouth to speak, but Seraphina raised her hand, silencing him. "There's more you need to know," she continued. "The rebellion isn't just about power. It's about an ancient secret that could destroy everything. There's an artifact, Mark, an artifact hidden deep in the heart of this empire. It's older than anything we've ever known, and its power is unimaginable." Mark stared at her, feeling a sense of dread creep over him. What kind of artifact? Seraphina's face darkened. The artifact holds the power to control not just Zoltrax, but the entire galaxy. Whoever controls it has the ability to bend time, space, and the very laws of nature. The rebels are after it. They think they can use it to defeat me and take control of everything. But if they succeed, they'll destroy the balance of power, and the entire galaxy will be plunged into chaos. Mark's heart raced. This was bigger than he thought. A powerful artifact that could change the universe. It sounded like something from a legend, a myth. But Seraphina was serious. She wasn't the type to make up stories. "I don't understand," Mark said, shaking his head. "How can I help with that? I'm just one man." Seraphina looked him dead in the eyes. "You have something they don't. You're human. The artifact can only be unlocked by a human. And I believe you're the key." Mark didn't know what to say. This was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. He had come here thinking he was just going to help a queen with a rebellion. But now it seemed like the fate of the galaxy was in his hands. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. Seraphina's gaze softened, but her resolve never wavered. "You may not think you are, but I believe in you. And together, we can stop the rebellion, save my empire, and protect the galaxy." Mark stood in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. His life had just changed forever. The choice. The air was thick with tension. Mark stood alone in the quiet corridor of Seraphina's palace, staring at the closed door to her chambers. He felt as if the weight of the universe had fallen on his shoulders. His mind raced. The queen had offered him a chance to help save her empire, to wield power he could only dream of. She had said he was the key to stopping the rebellion, to preventing chaos from tearing the galaxy apart. But now, standing in the silence, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to make a decision that would change everything: his life, the fate of the empire, and maybe even the future of the galaxy. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door. Seraphina was standing by a large table covered with maps and old scrolls. The room was lit by the soft glow of floating orbs, casting shadows on the stone walls. When she turned to face him, there was no trace of the calm, royal demeanor she had shown before. Her eyes were tired, and there was a hint of doubt in her voice. "You've thought it over?" she asked, her voice low. Mark nodded. "I've thought about nothing else." Seraphina gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit. We need to talk." He sat down, his hands clenched into fists. His mind was still swirling. The choice she had given him was simple, yet terrifying. He could accept her offer and help her save her empire, or he could walk away and return to his life, leaving the fate of the galaxy to the rebels and the forces that threatened it. "If I agree to help you, I'm not just stepping into a battle for control of this empire," Mark said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind in his chest. "I'm stepping into something far bigger. This artifact you spoke of. If I unlock it, it could change everything. And you say the rebels want it for themselves. What if they get it?" Seraphina's eyes darkened. "Then everything we know could be destroyed. The power of that artifact is more dangerous than anything you can imagine. It's a force that can rewrite reality itself. If the wrong people gain control of it, it will be the end of everything. Not just Zoltrax, but the galaxy, Mark." Mark leaned forward, his mind still struggling to grasp the full weight of her words. "And you want me to trust that you can control this power? You, of all people?" Her face softened, but her voice remained firm. "I didn't want to get into this, but I'll tell you something. I'm not just the Queen of Zoltrax. I'm the last in a line of rulers who have guarded this power for centuries. We're the only ones who know the secrets of the artifact, but it's also something we've kept hidden, kept away from the world. My family made sure it never fell into the wrong hands." Mark took a deep breath. "And you think I'm the one who can stop the rebels from taking it?" "I do," Seraphina said, her gaze unwavering. "The artifact can only be unlocked by a human. It's the way it's always been. The key is in your blood, Mark." Mark stared at her, the realization sinking in. He had always thought of himself as just a soldier, a man with no real power or destiny. But now he was being told that his very existence might be the key to saving, or destroying, everything. "What if I'm not ready?" he asked quietly. "What if I fail?" Seraphina walked around the table and stood in front of him. "We don't have time for doubt, Mark. The rebellion is already growing stronger. You've seen it yourself. If we don't act soon, the artifact will be lost, and so will the future of this empire." Mark stood up, pacing the room. His heart pounded in his chest. Every part of him screamed to walk away, to refuse her offer and go back to a simpler life. But something inside him, a deep primal instinct, told him he couldn't. He had never been one to back down from a fight. But this fight was different. This was more than just a battle for survival. This was about making a choice, one that would affect not just him, but the entire galaxy. "You're asking me to trust you," Mark said, stopping in front of her. "But I don't even know you. I don't know if I can trust anyone in this palace. Can you really control this power? What if you're lying to me?" Seraphina's expression didn't change. She stepped closer to him, her eyes intense. "I'm not lying to you, Mark. Everything I've told you is the truth. I can't do this alone. I need your help. But in the end, the choice is yours. You don't have to do anything. You can walk away, go back to your old life. But remember this, if you do, everything you've seen, everything you've learned, will disappear. And the rebels will take what they want, and they won't stop until they've destroyed everything." Mark's heart raced. He didn't want to be a part of this mess. He didn't want to be caught up in the politics and the power struggles. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized he couldn't turn his back on the people who needed him. "I don't want to fail," Mark said, his voice shaking slightly. "You won't," Seraphina said, her voice steady now. "You don't have to do it alone. We'll fight this together." Mark closed his eyes for a moment, taking it all in. When he opened them again, he looked at Seraphina, a new resolve in his gaze. "All right," he said, his voice calm and determined. "I'll help you, but I need to know everything. No more secrets." Seraphina nodded. "Everything. But first, we must make our move. The night begins." The night was dark, but the air inside the palace felt strangely charged. Mark couldn't help but feel the weight of the choice he had made pressing on him. He had agreed to help Seraphina. The moment the words left his mouth, everything changed. Now he was about to enter a world far beyond anything he had ever known, a world filled with danger, secrets, and power. Seraphina led him through the dimly lit halls of the palace. Her footsteps were quiet, almost as if she didn't want to disturb the silence that filled the corridors. But Mark could feel the tension in the air, the sense of urgency that hung around them. "This way," Seraphina said softly, guiding him down a narrow hallway that he had never noticed before. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols he didn't recognize. They glowed faintly, casting a soft blue light on the floor. Mark had seen a lot in his life, but nothing like this. It was as if they were walking through the very heart of the empire. They stopped at a large ornate door. It was made of thick, dark wood, with golden hinges that gleamed in the low light. Seraphina turned to face him, her expression serious. "This is where the artifact is kept," she said quietly. "The artifact is not just a piece of history. It's a weapon, a power that could change everything. And you, Mark, are the key to unlocking it." Mark swallowed hard. The weight of her words sank deep into his chest. He was about to be part of something far bigger than he ever imagined. But he still didn't fully understand what he was dealing with. The artifact. What was it really? Why did it need someone like him, a human, to unlock it? Serafina placed her hand on the door, and it slowly creaked open, revealing the dark room beyond. The air inside was cold, and the smell of ancient dust filled Mark's nose. As they stepped inside, the door shut behind them with a soft thud, leaving them in near-complete darkness. There was a low hum in the air now, a strange, vibrating sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Mark felt a chill run down his spine as he followed Serafina deeper into the room. The space was vast, much larger than he had imagined. In the center of the room was a stone pedestal, and atop it, a small, glowing object rested. Mark couldn't see it clearly from where he stood, but the glow was faintly green, casting an eerie light across the room. The artifact. The power Serafina had spoken of. It looked so simple, so small, but Mark had learned by now that appearances could be deceiving. Serafina moved toward the pedestal, her eyes never leaving the glowing object. She reached out and carefully touched it. The hum in the air grew louder, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to shimmer with energy. "This is it," Serafina said, her voice almost a whisper. "The key to everything. And now, Mark, it's your turn. Only you can activate it." Mark stepped closer, his heart racing. He had been trained to fight, to survive. But this was something entirely different. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this kind of responsibility. "How do I do it?" Mark asked, his voice low, unsure of what he should do next. Serafina turned to him, her eyes steady. "Place your hand on it. The artifact will respond to you. Trust yourself, Mark. You're the only one who can unlock its true power." Mark hesitated for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Could he really do this? Could he really unlock something so powerful? But he had made his choice. He couldn't turn back now. With a deep breath, he stepped forward and placed his hand on the artifact. The moment his skin touched the smooth surface, a jolt of energy shot through him. His entire body tingled, and for a second, he felt as if he was connected to something far greater than himself. The hum in the room grew louder, and the green glow of the artifact pulsed in time with his heartbeat. Mark's mind raced as he felt strange images flash before his eyes. Visions of distant worlds, of ancient battles, of people long gone. The power was overwhelming, and for a moment, he almost pulled his hand away. But something deep inside him told him not to. He kept his hand on the artifact, focusing on the energy that surged through him. He could feel it now, the power coursing through his veins, unlocking something within him. The artifact wasn't just a tool, it was alive, and it was choosing him. "Mark." Serafina's voice broke through his concentration. "You're doing it. Keep going." The energy around them began to shift, the room itself seeming to come alive. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, and the air grew warmer. The artifact was responding to him, to the human touch, just as Serafina had said. But just as he thought he had a grip on it, the power surged again, stronger, faster. Mark stumbled back, his hand still on the artifact. His head spun as the visions grew more intense, more chaotic. He saw images of war, destruction, and fear. He saw faces, strange, alien faces, some twisted in pain, others in anger. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. The energy in the room settled, and the hum faded away. Mark's hand was still on the artifact, but now, everything was quiet. He pulled his hand away slowly, his heart still racing. The room felt normal again, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. He had seen things, things that didn't make sense. The artifact had shown him visions of a future that was yet to come. It was as if the artifact had given him a glimpse of what lay ahead. But what did it mean? Serafina was staring at him, her eyes wide. "It's done," she said softly. "The artifact has chosen you. You're ready." Mark wasn't sure if he was ready, but one thing was clear: the night was far from over. The truth behind the offer. Mark stood frozen, staring at the artifact. The room was silent, except for the soft hum that still lingered in the air. His hand trembled slightly as he pulled it away from the glowing object. He had felt the power. No, the force that had surged through him when he touched it. The visions, the strange images of alien worlds and battles, were still vivid in his mind. But there was one thing he couldn't shake: the feeling that he had just done something that couldn't be undone. Serafina stepped closer to him, her eyes studying him carefully. Her face, usually calm and regal, now showed signs of uncertainty. Mark could tell that something had changed. Something in the air had shifted, and it wasn't just because of the artifact. "Mark," Serafina said, her voice low. "You felt it, haven't you? The power, the truth behind this artifact. You've seen what it can do." Mark nodded slowly. He had felt it, felt the power racing through him. But now that the initial rush had worn off, a new, more pressing question lingered in his mind. What does this all mean? Why me? Why did you bring me here? What's this really about? Serafina didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned toward the artifact, her gaze softening. The glowing object was no longer pulsing with energy, but Mark could still feel the weight of its presence. It was as if it was waiting for something. For him. "The artifact is a key," Serafina began slowly, her voice steady. "A key to something much bigger than any of us. It has the power to reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. But it cannot be controlled by just anyone. That's where you come in." Mark's eyebrows furrowed. "But I'm just a human. What could I possibly have to do with this?" Serafina turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his. "It's because you are human that the artifact chose you." Mark was confused. "I still don't understand. What does it want from me?" "The artifact is ancient," Serafina explained, her tone serious. "It was created long ago by a race far older than anything we know today. They created it to give power to the one who could unlock it. But not just anyone could do it. The artifact was designed to choose someone who would be able to handle its power, someone who had the strength to use it wisely." Mark's mind raced. "And you think I'm that person?" Serafina nodded slowly. "I do. The artifact has already chosen you. I know this because I've seen it before. It doesn't make mistakes." "But why me?" Mark repeated, his voice rising. "I'm just a soldier. I'm not someone with any special skills or—" "You underestimate yourself, Mark," Serafina interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "You have a strength inside of you that you don't even realize yet. You've been trained to fight, to survive. But what you have now is different. The artifact has awakened something within you, something that can change the course of the galaxy." Mark stared at her, unsure of whether he was ready for this. His life had been simple before. All he needed to do was follow orders. But now he was caught in something much larger. The weight of Serafina's words pressed on him, and he could feel the gravity of the situation sinking in. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Mark asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Why did you make it sound so simple? Why didn't you warn me about what I was walking into?" Serafina's expression softened. "I didn't want to overwhelm you. The choice was yours, Mark. I needed you to make it without knowing everything. If you knew the truth too soon, you might have run from it. The artifact is not just a tool. It's a power that can destroy or save. And I had to be sure you would make the right choice." Mark's heart raced. He had agreed to help her, to unlock the artifact's power. But now he wasn't sure if he had made the right choice. What if he wasn't ready for this? What if he couldn't control the power he had just unleashed? Serafina seemed to sense his doubt. She reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip surprisingly firm. "Don't worry, Mark. You don't have to do this alone. You've already made a choice, and I'll help you. Together, we can use the artifact to protect the galaxy." Mark shook his head. "But what if I mess it up? What if I can't handle it?" "You can," Serafina said with confidence. "You have the strength inside of you, but there's more you need to know. The artifact is not just a weapon. It's a symbol of leadership. Whoever controls it will have the power to unite the galaxy. And that's why I need your help." Mark's mind was spinning. He hadn't known what he was getting into when he had agreed to help Serafina. He had thought it would be just another mission. But now, everything was different. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about the future of the entire galaxy. "And what do you need from me?" Mark asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Serafina looked at him with determination in her eyes. "I need you to claim the artifact's power, to use it to lead, to unite the fractured worlds, and to take your place beside me." Mark was stunned. "You want me to lead the galaxy?" Serafina nodded. "Not just lead. Rule. Together, we can create a new future, one where peace reigns." Mark didn't know what to say. The offer was overwhelming, but there was something inside him, something that told him he couldn't walk away from this. The artifact had chosen him, and now it was time to choose his path. Mark's heart raced as the reality of his decision began to sink in. He wasn't just accepting power for power's sake. He wasn't doing this to rule for the sake of ruling. He was doing it because the galaxy needed change, because there was a chance for peace, and because he couldn't stand by and watch everything he had fought for slip away. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. "I'll take the artifact. I'll stand beside you and lead." Serafina nodded, her face softening. "You've made the right choice. Together, we will bring balance to the galaxy. Together, we will shape the future." Mark felt a weight lift off his shoulders, though a new weight replaced it, the weight of responsibility. But this time, it felt different. He wasn't alone. He had Serafina by his side, and the power of the artifact backing him up. It was time. Time to step into the role he had never asked for, to face the challenges that awaited them. The future of the galaxy was in his hands. But now, for the first time, Mark felt ready. A new future. The throne room was silent as Mark stepped forward, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. The large chamber stretched out before him, its walls lined with alien symbols and ancient carvings. But it wasn't the room that mattered. It was the future that lay ahead. His future. The future of the galaxy. Serafina stood beside him, her regal presence radiating calm and strength. She was no longer just the alien queen. She was his ally, his partner in this new journey. The throne, once a symbol of power and fear, now felt like the center of a new beginning. Mark took a deep breath, his fingers brushing the smooth surface of the artifact resting on the pedestal in front of him. It had taken time to understand its power, its mysteries. But now he felt its energy thrumming beneath his fingertips. It wasn't just a tool. It was a symbol of everything he had become. He turned to face Serafina, his heart racing with determination. "Are you sure about this? About me?" Serafina smiled, her eyes shining with trust. "I've never been more certain. You were always meant for this, Mark. The galaxy needs a leader who understands what it means to fight for something more than just power. You are that leader." Mark nodded, his chest swelling with pride. He hadn't come here seeking glory. He had come seeking justice, peace, and a future where the galaxy could rebuild. He had found that path, unexpectedly, but undeniably, with Serafina by his side. The doors to the throne room opened, and the leaders of the galaxy's most powerful factions entered. They had come for the coronation, to witness the dawn of a new era. Mark could see the uncertainty in their eyes, uncertainty about him. He wasn't an alien king. He wasn't even from their world. But as they looked at him, Mark saw something else too. Hope. The future wasn't set in stone. It wasn't a line drawn in the sand. It was a path, full of twists and turns, but a path that he could shape. He could bring change. And change was what the galaxy needed. One by one, the leaders stepped forward to pay their respects. Some looked hesitant, others curious, but all of them knew the truth. Mark was the one who had accepted the weight of the galaxy's fate, and they would follow him. They had no choice. The artifact had chosen him, and now the galaxy had no choice but to accept him. Mark's gaze shifted to the seat of the throne, the symbol of everything he had fought against and fought for. It was a symbol of control, but in his hands, it could be something more. It could be a symbol of unity, of hope. It wasn't about ruling. It was about leading them into a future where peace was possible. Seraphina stepped forward and placed the crown upon his head, her fingers lingering on his brow. "You are ready," she whispered, her voice soft, but filled with strength. Mark felt the crown settle into place. It wasn't heavy like he had imagined. Instead, it felt like a part of him, a part of his destiny. The weight of the responsibility was still there, but now it was something he could carry. He had the power, the knowledge, and the support of those who believed in him. The crowd fell silent, waiting for him to speak. Mark cleared his throat, his heart pounding. This was the moment he had been preparing for, but never truly expecting. He was a soldier, not a speaker. But now he had to be both. He raised his head, meeting the eyes of the assembled leaders. "I stand before you not as a king, but as a leader," Mark began, his voice strong and clear. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to wear this crown, but I have accepted it because I believe in a future where we all stand together, a future where we rise above our differences and work for something greater than ourselves." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The galaxy is broken. We've seen wars, betrayal, and pain. But we don't have to keep living in that cycle. We can change. We can build a future where every life matters, where peace isn't just a dream, but a reality." Mark glanced at Seraphina, who stood by his side, her expression proud. He drew strength from her presence. "I won't do this alone. I have allies, and I need all of you to stand with me. Together, we can create a future where no one has to fight for survival. A future where we all have a chance." The room was still. The leaders exchanged looks, but none spoke. Mark could see their doubt, but he could also see something else. Hope, a glimmer of something new. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. Mark stepped forward, extending his hand. "Will you join me?" One by one, the leaders approached, offering their hands in return. The moment was quiet but powerful. This was the beginning of something new. A new future, one where Mark's choices would shape the galaxy in ways he never imagined. As the last leader stepped forward, Mark felt a surge of pride and responsibility. He wasn't alone in this. The galaxy had chosen to follow him, and together, they would rebuild. The artifact's power was now his, but it wasn't the power to control. It was the power to create, to unite, and to lead. Mark turned to Seraphina, his heart full of gratitude. "We did it," he said quietly. Seraphina smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "No, Mark, you did it." And as Mark stood there, surrounded by the leaders of the galaxy, he realized the truth. This was just the beginning. The future was wide open, and together, they would shape it, one choice at a time.